thank you so much for joining me today. This is Ben Stockwin. He is CEO of Ayla. Thanks for giving up your time to have a chat with us today, Ben.
Pleasure, glad to be here.
Thank you. So we're going to dive straight in with some questions about associations and what's happening in your world. And then we're going to end the conversation with some fun stuff and get to know you stuff as well. So let's start with, what does the way we work look like for your association in the next 3 to 5 years?
I think for us, it's around, we're a fully remote organisation. We started to go fully remote well before COVID, and that's like a lot of organisations. COVID really accelerated that digital transformation space. For us, it's really trying to find that balance between getting the human element into what is largely a transactional medium and being able to utilise the technology, build on the relationships to not only make people feel at home at work, but to really drive forward on projects. Because one of the issues we find is that, once people tend to switch off and press leave or whatever button you may have, you're back on your own again. You can't just pop back into the water cooler and just, ask some clarifying questions. So that's largely around, I guess, processes and systems. So whilst, we've been experimenting with a whole range of platforms, 365, and trying to bring it all into the one area, we don't think we've got it quite right. So in 3 to 5 years' time, I'd love to see us really smooth out our systems using the available online technology as an adjunct to, value add to that relationship building and connections at work.
Yeah, fantastic. That's great. I think tech plays such an important part, but it is tricky to get it right because each individual organisation is different, isn't it? So interesting. Thank you. Can you share some insights into any new initiatives that you've tried or you want to explore further within your association recently?
Well, look, we're about to roll out our continual professional development curriculum and platform. So we're really interested in exploring what the most user-friendly tool is for our membership. So both with the member focused, so to enable them to be able to easily access high quality content in a way that meets the end user's need, but also in a way that allows us to be able to track that data for our own CPD auditing purposes, as well as to be able to provide detailed metrics back to the CPD providers to allow them to continue to value add to what it is we're offering in CPD. Longer term, like most associations, we're really keen in exploring how we can use our technology to better segment our membership. Now, Ayla has a relatively small membership base compared to some other organisations. We're looking at around 3,500. But even then, we've got an incredible diversity among our landscape architecture community. Some are academics, some work in local government, some work in international multidisciplinary practices, some work
very broad.
And so, whilst the feedback and the survey and the data is telling us that over the last 3 to 5 years, our members are really happy with what we've done for the profession as a whole, and they really appreciate that because was the priority, the advocacy and the profile building. The questions are now, what's in it for me? And really being able to articulate that value proposition for each one of those key segments of our membership.
Yeah, fantastic. It is all about the value proposition, isn't it? At the end of the day, that's what keeps them connected. So fantastic. What initiatives are you pursuing to attract younger members to your association?
Yeah, look, great question. I think it's really pertinent for our association because we have a real shortage of qualified landscape architects in Australia at the moment. We meet the need short term either through skilled migration or through employing unqualified landscape architects, so unregistered landscape architects, or those who aren't yet qualified to become landscape architects, which of course represents a risk for the profession, for the client, and ultimately the young professional. So we're taking a long-term strategy. We're starting at schools, and we have a program called Be a Landscape Architect, where we're doing incursion programs within the school environment, where we're focusing on years 9, 10, 11 and 12, where a landscape architect will go into a school, provide a presentation on what landscape architecture is in the first instance, some of the basic design principles, the slides around when design goes wrong, as always they are, always a great winner.
That's a fun one.
We then shift to an optional lesson activity linked to the geography and design and tech curriculum within schools. And so they start with a simple question, where in your playground do you not want to be? Because invariably, a place where people feel unsafe, uncomfortable, and don't want to be is the place with the least design considerations. Because the beauty of design, by its very nature, you don't know it's there, you don't notice it, but you do notice the opposite. And so the lesson activity then encourages students to work cooperatively, to look at a particular place where they feel, don't feel like being within their playground, and then redesigning and certainly some of those design principles they've learned. This year is the first year for this year's enrolment intake that we're starting to see students turning up to second round offer day, for example, saying, I had someone come and visit me, I'm really interested, I'd like to sign up. So it's really great to see that that's starting to pay off. But the second section is really to keep people in the profession, and we find it's a real need for us to develop it's a priority value proposition for us to develop support for professionals in those first 4 years of the profession. We find they'll join bushy tailed for the first year or two and then drop off until they come back to become registered again. But we feel there's a real value we can provide there, and anecdotally what we're hearing is it's around filling in the space around supporting them, mentoring them, particularly around some of the soft skills that they're not taught within the university program. So how to negotiate your first employment contract, how to deal with a difficult client, how to consult effectively with the community, all of those things that don't necessarily form the basis of a curriculum in university, but as soon as the rubber hits the road, they're being asked to do in their employment.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's really insightful. That's really interesting. Thank you. And I think the question, where do you not want to be, is just a great question to ask yourself in life as well. So I love that. I love that approach. Thank you so much. I'm interested to know if there are any challenges that keep you awake at night. I'm sure there's many. I'm sure you're very busy running an association, but is there anything in particular that keeps you awake?
Like, I think it's the things that do sort of generally I sleep pretty well. I can brush most things off, but I think the things that keep you up at night are probably the twofold. The financial stuff, if there's ever anything, some financial stability, because of course as CEO you do bear carriage and a lot of responsibility for the people within your organisation, the growth of the organisation. You're aware in a membership-based organisation that you've got carriage of this really sort of special thing that's got a lot of legacy and a lot of history. So it's you take that exceptionally serious. So anytime financial data doesn't go the way it should or was expected, there's always cause for it. And then also the personal. I mean, it's whilst CEOs, we try to put on a fairly stern and stoic and optimistic face. There are times when you do have genuine concerns for people within your organisation and their well-being and the direction they're heading in, and likewise when times get tough and you do need to downsize, you're aware that a person's job is their identity, and obviously the emotional stuff I think is probably some of the trickiest stuff to deal with.
Yeah, CEOs are human too, right? Hashtag.
Apparently.
Definitely are. Thank you, Ben. That's helpful. Amidst all the professional juggling that you do, what's the one guilty pleasure that can power you through a really hectic day? And there's no judgment.
No. Well, I was about to say there's no judgment at all, because I wouldn't define them as guilty pleasures, because I don't feel guilty about them at all. But I think there's probably a couple. I think caffeine's always a great one, and that's definitely a pleasure. Probably guilty in terms of things that I do that I probably shouldn't do. You hit a certain point and you get, the only way I'm going to get through this afternoon is sugar. So I think either nothing will get me through more than a large packet of gummy bears, the really super sweet gummy bears. Or, at the moment, it would have to be a packet of double coat Tim Tams.
Oh, it's a double coat, isn't it? It's always a double coat.
That's a double guilty pleasure. So that usually helps keep me focused and power on. Probably one of the guiltier pleasures I did have up until Fortnite had its disagreement with the Apple Store. I would often intersperse the day by just going onto my iPad and having a quick game of Fortnite. That's about a 5 or 10 minute break, which is nice sort of to break up the day. And that was a fantastic de-stress. When I told my colleagues that's what I was doing in my breaks, they couldn't believe it, but it was exceptionally effective.
I think that is a top tip. They heard it here first. I love that. I'm going to try that. Thank you. Do you have a quirky or unexpected hobby that you indulge in to recharge outside of your work?
Well, it depends what you consider quirky, because I guess one person's quirk is another person's. But look, primarily for me, I think probably the two key things for me. One, surfing. I love being in the water. I'm very fortunate to live in a place where I can go surfing, most mornings, and that's a great perspective. Perspective to have, in the morning, particularly when the waves are a little bit challenging and so on. There's something about stepping from a land environment to a water environment. There's particularly when there's times where it's not easy going. But it's just such a beautiful way to start the day, and it's particularly when you're deeply involved, it's very difficult to think of other things while you're out there. So it does become a form of meditation. And of course, this morning there's dolphins in the water, there's fish jumping. It was a beautiful sunny day. That's a great way. The other thing, probably of an evening, is I do like to. Well, I should start by saying I do like to eat, so therefore I do like to cook, and so I do like cooking a whole range of different things. And I find just the process, when I have the luxury of time, to spend an hour or so actually preparing quite an ornate dinner, I find completely unwinding. Doesn't happen every night, of course, but there's times when I think, no, tonight I'm going to cook.
It's a process. I like that. So very good. They're fantastic. Thank you so much. What is your favourite cocktail when somebody else is paying?
I'd have to say, this is whether I'm paying or other people are paying or not, I'm going to have to go for something really simple, and I'd have to say a margarita, and not the margaritas you get now in the new sort of hipster pop-up, Mexican restaurants. I'm talking about the ones I remember back from my uni days, where you'd go somewhere on a Tuesday night, it would be happy hour, and there'd be the fish bowls for $8 or $9. And I think, the margaritas that are about that large just don't cut it. There's days when you do need, I'm going to have a cocktail, it needs to be a fish bowl. But apart from that, if someone was really serious about buying, I think I'd steer them to the end of the red wine list, rather than the start of it, and suggest they choose something very nice. So that'll be my recommendation.
Noted. Good to know. I can't believe you could ever get a margarita for $8 or $9. Before my time in Australia, I'll tell you, but I am partial to a margarita myself. Thank you so much. Now, I understand you're not a dancer, you're not a dance floor person, so I'm going to ask you instead, what's your favourite song? What's the one song that you love that you have to sing along with, that you always want to play? Who do you love?
Look, it's really, I've got a very eclectic musical taste, and it sort of depends on my mood and what I'm doing. But I'm thinking, if I'm heading to the surf, I'll probably play something quite upbeat. My musical tastes are somewhat old school. In fact, they're perhaps even dating before I was born. So, some great Aussie music. There's a band called Radio Birdman, which was an early Australian punk band, and Celibate Rifles, which are very similar vein. That's always highly energising. On the way back, when it's time to chill, I'll probably be putting on, something with some reggae flavours and so on. Things like Jimmy Cliff and Peter Tosh and so on. The classics are always very good.
From punk rock to reggae, I love it. That's with a surf in between. That's a great morning. That's a great start, isn't it? Fantastic. Thank you. One last question for you, Ben. Could you share one special skill that you have that might surprise us? You might like to think of this as a party trick, or it might be something that's a special skill at work, or anything in between.
Oh man, that is that is a very difficult one. Look, I'd have to say, I don't know. I'd have to say probably something water related. Like I do enjoy free diving, and I can hold my breath and stay under the water for quite some time. It worries my wife no end, because I'll go out free diving and hopefully spear some fish, and I'll be gone for perhaps longer than she feels comfortable. So I think that's probably a special skill, because I know not necessarily everyone can do it. I don't get to do it very often at work. If it was a work-related skill, I think something I'm becoming known for, it's what my children refer to as being a meme lord. I seem to have a meme for every occasion, so it's quite good. So to lighten up a staff meeting or another meeting, I can pop up a meme in a pretty short notice. So I guess that's a pretty good skill.
They're excellent skills. I take my hat off to free divers. I know a couple of them. That is, I think, a skill that also is a mental skill as well as a physical. And I love a meme. That's fantastic. Always good to bring some humour to a meeting. So that's amazing. Thank you so much, Ben. That's amazing. Thank you for your time. It's great to get to know you and pick your brains. Really appreciate it.